put down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
All right, here we are again, back in the studio with the Savvy Radio Show. Oh, shucks. I got a friend on the radio show today who has an amazing story of how he got into real estate, his day job, his life in general, and I would love to welcome, and at the end of the show, if he gives out his phone number, he's kind of likes privacy, so we don't want to push the limit here. Jonathan Kluck, right? Kluck, son of a... All right. So anyway, we met through a real estate RIA meeting. You've been coming to those for a long time.
Yep.
And can I ask you how old you are?
30.
30 years old. So I don't know why I like younger people than me, because I wish I would have gotten into real estate when I was younger. So how did you went to college?
Yeah, I went to school at OSU. I started out just, my parents said, go to school, get good grades, work hard, find a job, and then I guess figure out the rest after that. That's kind of what everybody recommends when you're younger, and you don't know any better because you don't have any experience.
So you didn't just follow that plan. So you got good grades.
Yeah.
Went to OSU. What'd you go to OSU for?
I studied finance, accounting, economics, and then I kind of got locked in, and I stayed for graduate school too. Did an MBA there.
You have an MBA?
Yeah.
No wonder you make a lot of money. No, I'm just playing. So did you know that you were going to be a banker?
No, I didn't. I started out and I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. It seemed appealing to do medical school or law school or engineering, but I didn't. It was tough, to get through that.
So, but you have an economics degree.
Yeah.
And what's your MBA in?
It's kind of specialized in finance.
For all you single ladies out there, the guy's sexy. So he's educated and he buys rental property. All right. So you got good grades, went to college, even got your MBA. Okay. Did you get your MBA while you were working?
No, I continued full
straight
time.
on. Okay.
Yeah.
So then what epiphany, what happened? All of a sudden that you have a few rental properties and you're on the Savvy Radio Show. How did it go down?
I started out, I got a job at a bank and I was enjoying it and I was learning a lot. And I knew that when I worked at a bank, I would be around a lot of people here in the community that were successful doing things at all types of businesses. And that was my plan, was to figure out ways that a lot of people had been successful in the city, and that I was going to learn enough and then try and start doing one of those on the side at some point.
So you saw these customers?
Yeah.
So you were just a regular. What'd you do at the bank at that time?
I did credit analysis, so I got all the financial statements from all of these individuals, and so I got to see everything about
them, like, wow,
how much they make, what they owned, all kinds of things.
And you were impressed that were they wealthy?
I was impressed. I was blown away. And the common denominator was I noticed almost everyone had some sort of real estate. Even if they made their money doing something else, they always bought real estate.
Okay. So that perked your interest in real estate. So then what happened?
So when I first started, I was looking for a house to buy. I got out of school and I'm working and I have some money saved, and I was trying to buy houses, and at the time it was a first-time homebuyer's tax credit at $8,000, and so they would do up to 10% of the purchase price with a maximum of $80,000 purchase price. So you'd get a maximum of $8,000. Cool. So that was kind of my price range starting out. But I looked at these houses and I was trying to call realtors and I was trying to find houses, and houses were priced so high for what they were, or they'd be redone and remodeled, but not how I wanted it, but you're still paying top dollar based on the comps in the area. But it was hard to find good deals. And one thing that really pushed me to the next level was I found a house that I really liked in this area that I liked, on the street that I liked, and I tried to go see it. I saw it. I liked it. I wrote up the contract, but it was a friend of the realtor, and it was over some weekend, maybe Memorial Day weekend, so it was a holiday, and that realtor who had the house was at the lake. Okay. Partying at the lake. And so my offer didn't even get put in, and somebody else got the house. And that was a point where I said, I'm done. This is I can't handle this anymore with other people
controlling the deal.
Yeah, relying on other people
while they're at the
to
beach
help me out. Yeah, and they don't care. Yeah. So at that point...
Oh, man, we need to have a realtor show bash. No, I'm just joking, realtors out there, but kind of. Go. Okay. So, all right. So you wanted... Okay, why'd you get into real estate anyway? Because other people were into real estate? Before we get into these deals, because I love your story. But let's get into that. But like, what was your thrust behind getting into real estate? You were already successful. You already had a great job.
Yeah, and it just didn't. It just seemed like I wanted to do something more, or I didn't want to have all this knowledge from working in banking and not somehow use it or apply it, other than just working at the day job. And I was always interested in those types of things: finance, accounting, economics. I always used to read about those things. I guess kind of nerdy in that way.
It's all right.
But I just didn't want to have the information. I wanted to do something with it.
Okay, so that's what got your interest. Now, you mentioned off the studio when we were like kind of going over this, you said Rich Dad Poor Dad. Was that was a book that motivated you as well? That
was a book I read during college, and it was one of those where everyone had talked about it, and I went to a bookstore when I had maybe some fall break or something, and I went and I picked up that book and I started reading through it, and I didn't put it down. I stayed at the bookstore and read all the way through it.
And so you randomly heard about the book, and that's how you...
Yeah, okay. A lot of people had talked about it.
So that was a seed planted. How long ago from the time that you wrote the book to the flunky realtor that wouldn't submit an offer because they were too much at the lake, realtors?
That was a couple years, actually. It started something inside me that I wanted to take it to the next level, but I was scared. I didn't, because everybody talks about how risky it is and how
especially for a banker.
Yeah, especially. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so now you're motivated. You're like hot to trot to buy real estate, and so the first deal went bust. So you were kind of pissed, right? So then what happened?
So I got this idea. I heard about people cold calling or putting up, bandit signs or sending letters or postcards. And so I thought, I already knew the street I wanted to live on. And I looked it up on County Assessor, something we did at the bank all the time. And one night I pulled up the plat and I looked at all of the properties on that street, and there were about 150. And so I wrote out a letter and just said, I'm looking to buy a house in this area. I'm not a realtor, a flipper, a lawyer, anybody that's trying to take advantage of anybody. I'm just looking to buy a house to live here because I really did want to live there. Cool. So I wrote that letter. I signed it in blue ink at the bottom. It was short and sweet so they'd know it was an original. And one day after work, I drove to that street and walked one side of the street. There were about 150 houses total on that street, just a straight line. And I passed out 75 on one side and just put them in the doors, and it was right when a lot of people were getting home from work. So a lot of them, they were just pulling in their driveway, and I just handed them this letter.
And you just randomly handed... Okay, so you didn't want to mail the letter.
No.
Because economics...
I was too cheap.
Yeah, I love that when we were hanging... I'll tell more about Jonathan here shortly, but we were hanging out, and he was like, I didn't want to mail them. I want to save money. So you were just boots on the ground, single guy, walking around in the neighborhood, passing out flyers like to a church event. Technically, or a concert, and you're walking up to people and not even saying hi and handing them a. Yeah. And then did it spark conversations with people? How did it go down from there?
Yeah, so I passed out about 150 of those flyers, and it had my phone number and email address on it. And the next day, out of 150, they say that you get 5% or 10% response from those.
It's really 1%.
1%. So I got a couple emails and I got 4 or 5 phone calls from that. But people knew it was for real.
Sure.
People knew it was for real. It wasn't just a yellow postcard that
everyone
people sends out a million to. It was specifically 2 people in that neighborhood on that street with my name at the bottom. And it was actually the house I didn't get because of the whole realtor situation. A house 5 houses down from that one is the one I ended up buying, and I got it for $80,000, and it was the first time home buyer's tax credit, so I got tax credit $8,000. So my purchase price or my cost for that was $72,000, and I got to do the rehab myself, so I got to make it how I wanted to. Instead of buying top of the market the way somebody else wanted it redone, and still had some equity in the property.
So you were owner occupied. So this is your first house. Were you living in an apartment before, or were you with your parents?
I lived with my parents first.
Okay, so then you took this leap of faith, got into real estate. So then, what were you thinking? Were you nervous? When you went down to look at a HUD? I mean, I guess you've done this at your J job, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of comfortable with contracts, so you weren't too nervous about all that jazz.
I understood it, and I knew that so many people had done it before me, and I'd seen a lot of things. I just figured I was prepared enough, and I talked to some people at work too that kind of would look over it.
So you're the one that you had to write a contract up yourself.
Yeah.
And so you got to get these people to sign it, and you walk them through the closing and everything on your very first deal.
Right.
And it was your own owner occupied. You only had to put $8,000 down.
Well, I put down a little bit more than that, but
you only required.
Yeah.
You only had to put down 10%, right?
I put down about 20%, and then I got that $8,000 back because it was a tax credit. Because that took about 3 months to get that money back. But that I already had a little bit of money saved from living with my parents, and so that wasn't a problem. I just started to do the rehab.
Okay, so then get your first house. You're living large. Then what? So then, like, all of a sudden, I know that you have more than 5.
Yeah.
We're not going to throw out a number. Well, you have more than 5 because he likes privacy.
I want to point out this wasn't some killer deal, but it doesn't matter. It was the first one. It was a good deal. I learned so much from it.
You're in the game.
But I was okay with just having that one house. And so I got it the way I wanted it. I was settled in. I was working at my job. I was focused on my job. And then after another year or two, I thought, I don't want to just work. I want to, again, I want to do more. And I would read things about the economy and about investing all the time, and I thought I want to do something. And I'd gotten burned a couple times in the stock market whenever oil went up to $147 a barrel. All these oil stocks went up, and then everything just fell off. It fell off. I think it was in 2008 or so. It went down to $35 a barrel.
And you had stock at that time.
Yeah, and so I didn't lose everything, but I lost a lot, and it never really recovered.
Sure.
So I just sat and I didn't do anything for a while. Then there was another house I wanted to get, and it was in a neighborhood where I had a friend living there, and he told me about a property. He said, I always told him, once every 3 months, 6 months, year, I said, if there's ever a house here, I want to live in this area. And he said, there's a lady and she has a house, and I think that she's moving to a retirement home, and so she might, I don't know what they're going to do with the house after. So same thing. Immediately, as soon as I found out that day, I wrote a letter and I put it in the mailbox. And a day or two later, I got a phone call from the person who was cleaning the house, who had given the information on that letter to the daughter of the woman who lived there, who lived in Dallas.
Dang.
She called me, and over several phone calls and emails, and a person-to-person meeting, we figured out a deal. And once again, it wasn't a home run, it wasn't a killer deal,
Sure.
but it was a good deal. And
you did the same process. You treated it as an owner occupied.
Well, I had assumed that I was going to live there, and it was one that I wanted. I still do. I want to live in that house someday.
Okay.
But when I bought it, and then I realized I'm not ready to move yet. I don't want to do all this rehab and whatever. And so I kind of panicked. I thought, what am I going to do? And that's really how I got into the rental business, is kind of by accident. And I thought,
wow,
okay, well, all these people are doing rental stuff. And I talked to a couple customers at the bank that had hundreds or thousands of properties, and got some ideas there. And they said, this is what you need to do. And so naturally, I don't like taking risks, but they kind of helped lighten that for me and saying, what's the worst that'll happen? You sell the house and you probably won't even lose anything because you got a decent deal for it. But really, I and that was the other thing that people always say, if you don't ever do rentals, people are going to trash the property. And I thought, well, it already needs, this woman had lived there for 40 years, at least 40 years. And so it had wallpaper on it, and, one bathroom's pink, one is peach. And so I thought, well, I already need to redo it before I move in. This is a great opportunity to rent it. And then if it gets trashed, I made a little bit of money, and I'm going to have to redo it all anyway. So it ended up, it worked out well.
So you didn't rehab it. You just left it alone.
I changed out some carpet and a couple light fixtures that had.
That's it.
Yeah, that was it.
And then you put it on the market for rent.
Put it on the market.
How'd you advertise it?
I did a Craigslist and then a sign at the end of the street next to a busy street. And just with my phone number, I didn't have any technology really. And I started getting calls, and I had heard from somebody that said, schedule the showings all at once. And I mean, you've got to whenever you're working full time. So sure. It was one day after work. I said, okay, Wednesday at 6:00 if you're interested. And I would kind of talk to them a little bit on the phone first and make sure that they seemed legit and that they didn't have
pre-qualifying.
20 kids, 20 dogs trying to get in a house. So So it worked out, and that tenant's still there.
So how'd you get financing? Was that a difficult situation? Because I know that hopefully we can talk about, we got about 10 more minutes, but you have the strategy that you use now, kind of live in the property, let it mature a little bit, and then go get the best financing possible. I'm going to let you let this in your words because I love your strategy, but this is not the strategy you told me the other day.
Yeah,
this is your second deal, your second house. So how'd you finance this deal? How'd this go down?
The first house that I bought, I had lived there long enough, and I had enough cash equity in it that I was able. There's for the Fannie Freddie type loans, especially for owner occupied loans. There's a seasoning period of 6 months, and after 6 months, you can refinance 80% based on the appraised value. So I bought the house, got a decent deal, done a lot of the work myself, and so it was worth a lot more. And so they did 80% of the appraised value, fixed for 30 years.
How much did it increase from the amount you say? How much? Whatever you bought it for 100. How much did it increase in equity?
It had gone to. It was appraised for 118,000.
And you got it for 80.
72.
72, and then but you put
and I put a little, maybe 12,000 in it. I put a little more than I should have, but it was my house where I was living, so I wanted it to be nice.
So how'd you get into the second?
So I refinanced, and I got all of my money plus some out of that.
A bunch. How's like what 40?
Yeah,
about 40K. Okay, cool.
So I'm pretty cheap, so I'd saved up a bunch of money since then too, and
we're all thrifty.
I never wanted to have zero in my bank account, so I was now I still don't like to take huge risks, so I took that money and just applied it for the down payment for the next house and a little bit for carpet and some light fixtures and things that were a hot water tank that I knew had to be replaced. But that was it, and then it was up and going, and that was about a year and a half or 2 years ago, and that was my first rental property, and the tenant's still there, and it's been great.
How many years has that been?
About just 2 years.
So you've been in the game for only 2 years, and you have over 5 properties.
Yes.
Man, you are not playing. Okay, let's keep going. So then you got that deal.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get it rented? Like, what was your holding costs, downtime?
It probably just took a month, but something.
Now you're buying in very desirable neighborhoods.
Yeah,
and these are not cheap homes.
Right.
They're not like the homes that I kind of buy.
Right.
So they're desirable. These are working. What kind of class of people? Not class, but they.
Well, yeah, it was the first rental property is kind of interesting because the tenant there, when I'm looking over the application, he made more money than I did at the time, and so.
And you're the landlord.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm okay with it. He's okay with it.
Well, he shouldn't need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't.
You shouldn't even be the owner. You should be the property manager.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things that I made mistakes on that I've changed
all right.
since then. Yeah.
Well, that's why you go to the RIA. I mean, that's why we actually hung out together. I'm stoked to talk about that later. But at the conference, we just got back from the Mr. Landlord conference, and we were roomies. All right, so you got 2 houses under your belt within 6 months. Because you said the seasoning period.
I had the first house for a couple of years, but I didn't refinance it until I was ready to buy another one.
Okay, so then you got that one.
And so that probably helped with the appreciation as well.
Yeah, sure. And then, okay, that makes sense. So now you have your first rental property. Now are you like on fire? Like you're...
Yeah, I just wanted to see if it would work, and it worked. And I got the first rent check, and there were no issues. And I even went over there once. Were you worried that there was going to be issues?
Oh
yeah. I'm just paranoid.
Your parents had some rentals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, back in the day. Okay, okay, cool. Keep going.
And it worked out. So then I thought, well, I guess it's time to buy the next one.
All right, keep going. Sorry, folks, technical difficulties. Google Hangout.
And the next one, it was just through a friend, and those were the best deals because, it's before they come on the market. It was just somebody knew that somebody was going to sell a house, and they thought, awesome. Well, would you be interested in this? So I went over and I took a look, and it was already the price was already kind of rearranged about what they wanted for the property. And once again, I'm not trying to get home runs. I want a good house for a fair price with a little bit of equity in it, and then move on to the next one.
Okay, so you gobbled that one up?
I got that one. That one rented out, and still same tenant in that property as well.
And so you just keep duplicating, growing, pulling equity out.
Yeah.
So go through your plan right now. You bought a house. You've only lived in it for 10 months. Talk about the deal that you're in now.
Yeah.
So what number 5 house or whatever you're in?
Okay, so most recently I got a house. out of nowhere, I was having a tough time finding a deal, and then the way that it always works, when it rains, it pours, or I got 2 houses in 2 days, and that's just how it worked. One day I went and looked at one, and I liked it. I put in an offer. The next day I saw another one come on. It was the first day on the market, and I went and I put in an offer, and I found out I got one day and one the next. And so I kind of panicked a little bit, but I had a lot of money saved up, and I was ready to go. And I had already kind of figured it out then, because once I had been in it for a year, so I was really focusing and reading everything I could,
and saving every dollar. And you're
saving
single,
every dollar, and talking
smart.
to people like you and at the RIA and wherever, just trying to learn as much as I could about what I was going to do and the best plan. So what I like to do is find one house that's owner occupied. I pay cash for it, or I get a line of credit, and I buy the house with cash, so that they know you're for real, that you can buy it and close really quickly, do all the rehab myself, and then 6 months later, it ties up that cash for 6 months, but then I can refinance 80% based on the appraised value, fixed for 30 years, and it's a cash cow.
No, but is this on your owner occupied?
Yeah, those are on the owner occupied. So
okay.
I just bought one that I moved into.
Right.
It's an owner
and you
occupied.
just keep. So your goal is to season it for 6 months or a year.
Yeah. So it'll be seasoned here in about 30 days. All the work's been done. I've already been living there, and then I'll be able to pull all of the cash.
Your cash,
out of it.
Original cash, you just keep
all the
snowballing,
cash out, and then it's fixed for 30 years, and that's so important because rates are expected to go up third quarter this year, and I'll be fixed for 30 years no matter what happens.
On all of your loans.
Not on all of them. But one.
Do you have any commercial money from the bank?
One loan is a commercial loan.
Now, was that hard to get?
No, actually, the government loans, the Fannie Freddie loans, are the most difficult because you can't jump through any hoops. Everything's by the book. There's so many. Everything has to be perfect because it's government regulated, which is fair because it's their money. They're printing it. It's their terms. But the ones through a bank, I think it just helped that I worked in banking, that I knew what they wanted. I knew exactly what they wanted.
And you look at those financials all day.
Yeah, and any bank's gonna like that. I'm not trying to live off this money. I'm not trying to just.
This is your retirement. Yeah. What's your vibe?
Yeah.
What's your goal? I mean,
right now I just want to try and manage and find the next property, and yeah, it'd be great for retirement someday. It might be nice to sell it one day and buy a business. I don't know. I mean, that's all.
So
things.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah,
is there any goals that you have? Is there a specific number? Do you want to cash flow 5,000 a month or 100 units? Some people are like, oh, when you hit 100 units. Oh, that's dumb. But anyway, some people are like, oh, I can't wait to make 5,000 a month or 10,000. Of course, I know we've had conversations where inflation, just buoys every number you come up with. But do you have any kind of aspirations in that regard? Or I
don't. It's more for me at this point. It's just a challenge, and it's just. You have gifts, or you're born a certain way and you develop certain things and you're around certain people, and so I just want to try and make the most of that and be challenged and get as far as I can, and that's kind of my goal right now. But yeah, of course everybody has goals to someday retire and be doing something, but I have no idea.
All right, let's go into what's some things that you kind of stumbled through a lot of stuff, and you read a lot. What's some things that you've learned, or what's some advice that you'd give someone that's at your age, 3 years old? I've heard these podcasts. I've been to the RIA. I want to get this thing done. What advice would you give some people?
Well, if you haven't done a deal yet, the first step is just get out there, save up some money. Don't be blowing all your money on the casino or whatever people are spending their money on, a new leased car, whatever. Just save up that money and jump out there and take the risk, because that's really the way you're going to learn. I learned all through college, all through graduate school, all in banking in my career, but I was still scared to make the jump just because people had all these horror stories. But that's really where you learn everything. I've learned everything just jumping in there and doing it myself and making my mistakes, trying to fix everything myself or clean everything myself or whatever.
Is there anything that stuck out to you? You're like, oh no, I'll never do that again?
I'm never going to clean a house myself again. I rented one of those carpet cleaners from like a grocery store or Home Depot.
Yeah.
And just $60. I wanted to save some money, and I didn't have the air conditioner on in that house, and it was in the summertime at night after work, and I'm just pouring with sweat, and that machine didn't work right. The wheel was locked, and so I just had to drag it across the carpet, and I'm sweating, and it didn't even clean the carpet. I ended up getting new carpet in that living room. So, I'm never going to do that. Just
That's cool. I learned that. I know that. I know I understand all that. All right. So how about this? So you've only been doing that for 2 years. You have 6 units, right? Mm-hmm. And a little thing about Jonathan, his parents were in real estate. They didn't do as well in some rentals. And so he was always, he saw the worst part of being a landlord. And then, I think you've made some great strides, man, especially the quality of the homes that you're purchasing. So then when we started connecting and hanging out, I was like, dude, I'm going to the Mr. Landlord conference. Won't you go? And you decided to go, and you were blown away. Tell me about what blew you away.
Well, just like anything, the conference was great and the speakers were great. But really, where you learn the most, just like at the RIA, you go to the RIA and there's a speaker, but then you talk to people afterwards, and the people who are really doing it. And a lot of them are the people and the personalities who don't want to be in the spotlight, but you get them one-on-one, and they'll show you the world.
I remember you were texting me. You were kicking it with Brad Grayson.
Yeah.
He's like a celebrity in my little world. Brad 2000.
Yeah. So that was probably the most notable thing from the conference was the last day after it was over, Stephen had already gone home, and I was on my own with all these in Indianapolis, city I've never been, with people that I didn't know at all. And I was all the way committed, all in. I was just trying to get the most out of it while I was there. And I kind of latched onto this guy, Brad, that was really successful, and he led some of the round tables at night he stayed up every night until 2 or 3 in the morning after the conference, just talking to people and answering questions.
I love that guy, man.
But the last day we went out and saw a friend of his, or somebody that he had just met, went and saw a bunch of rehabs that somebody was doing there in Indianapolis. They just took us out, carpooled. We looked at all these rehabs.
In Indy.
In Indy.
You've never been there.
And then after that, we went to that guy's steakhouse. He owns a steakhouse in Indianapolis, and he took
Oh my
us
gosh,
out
his
there.
name Bruce?
I think so, yeah.
What, did he have like kind of funky hair?
Yeah.
Kind of weird and eccentric kind of guy?
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
His name is Bruce. Bruce, hopefully you're hearing this. I want to go to the steakhouse, homie. So you just randomly started hanging out at the lounge and talking to these people. What's one of the things that you learned there? What was the couple of things that you've learned, or what motivated you?
I learned a lot from Brad, and he was just saying, you can't do everything yourself, and it really just resonated with me because that's where I am. I always want to do things myself.
Save $1.
And save $1, and it just gets you nowhere. You're spinning your wheels. You'll get burnt out that way. And he was just going step by step. The first people you need to hire, you first need to hire a housekeeper for your personal house. You need to hire a lawn guy to take care of your house and the lawn properties. You don't need to be driving around with a lawnmower in your trunk and mowing all these yards.
Yeah.
Things
You'll
like
never
that.
go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the stepping over dimes to pick up, or stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up. If you want to get a hold of Jonathan, if he inspired you, you can text into the show. He's not going to give out his information because he does work for a very large bank, and he doesn't want anyone to know that and all that jazz. But if you do, you want to get to know Jonathan. If you're a female and you're single and you want to hang out with a bachelor that's doing it big with rental properties, you can text 545454, the word ask, and we'll text you right back and we'll set it up. And, maybe you can be on the show and we can have Jonathan. We're definitely going to have Jonathan back. He's just starting. Only 2 years, 6 units, fell into real estate, killing it. He's got great financial wisdom. He blows my mind on that he's going to live in the house for a certain amount of time and pull out all the equity, every dollar he can, get the best 3% interest loan, almost no money down. It's just incredible. So, I mean, I'm super proud of you. I know if you were my son, you're only 10 years younger than me, but still, when I was 31 years old, I was just figuring it out, and you're out here killing it, doing it big. Can't wait to see you in 5 years, 10 years. Man, you're going to be the host. Who knows? Anyway, Jonathan, I really appreciate you coming out and spending some time. I know you didn't want to. We were spending every night in the hotel room, and I'm like, bro, I'm going to interview you. No, I don't want to. I don't want no one to know. No, bro, nobody walks a neighborhood with flyers like the Girl Scout cookie chick asking people to sell me your house. I mean, it's like the wholesaler's wholesaler. I mean, And your whole goal was just to get in a deal, to get a house. And I love just the whole concept. Anyway, we're gonna bring Jonathan back on the radio show. All you listeners, if you want to listen to other inspiring people like Jonathan, go to the SavvyRadioShow.com and like us on YouTube or iTunes, or spread the word. Let's get this out there, and let's build financial freedom for everybody. All right, Jonathan, take care.
Thanks for having me.
All right.